Hello, and it's very good to have you join me for my thought for the day today. Today I'm back in the Old Testament in Ezra, Ezra chapter 6. Now, Ezra was writing quite late on in the history of the Old Testament. If you have any problems with Old Testament history and timescales and who lived when and which prophets were in which period, on my channel there's a whole series of videos there in a playlist all about the Bible and the making sense of the history of it. If you struggle with understanding what was going on, do have a look at those. But this is quite late on in the history of the Old Testament. The people of Judah have gone into exile, overrun. Jerusalem had been overrun and besieged and taken 3 times till it was finally completely destroyed. And people went into exile to Babylon, among them Daniel and Ezekiel and many others. And after 70 years, a new king came, Cyrus the Mede, one of the Medes and Persian kings that conquered Babylon, and he allowed them to go back. God told him to send them back, and he sent them back with instructions to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. And they started, and the dates are fairly firm, in about 536 BC they started to rebuild that temple. And quite soon after they started, there was a lot of opposition because there were people in the land who had been settled there who were not Jews and who were from other nations, because this was a policy to move people around so you couldn't have any large company of people who would rebel against you and cause trouble. But there were a lot of people living in the area of Judah who were not Jews and who didn't want the temple rebuilt. There was a lot of opposition. There was 16 years, at least 16 years, about 16 years, opposition when nothing happened. And they had to stop they'd stopped building, and they were settling down back in their own land, but the temple was not rebuilt. And then 16 years later, they were given permission to restart building again, and it was finally completed in 516 BC. So it took between 20 and 23 years for the temple to be rebuilt. And the verse I'm going to read here, 2 verses from Ezra chapter 6, verse 14. And the elders of the Jews built and prospered through the prophesying of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Iddo. We have both their prophecies in our Bible. They finished their building by command of the God of Israel and by decree of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes, king of Persia. And this house was finished on the 3rd day of the month of Adar, in the 6th year of the reign of Darius the king. So they finally finished it. And they needed encouragement as they were working. And it was very difficult. It was a huge project. It was a big building. It was a huge project. And Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the prophet, both of these prophets, their writings were written down to encourage the people in their service of the Lord and in their rebuilding of the temple. And then finally, it was done. So why did I read that? Because I was just thinking today about how a lot of our life as Christians does not bring us instant results, that we actually have to have perseverance, endurance. We have to keep going. We know from the New Testament that it's likened to being in a race, but actually it's much more of a marathon race than a sprint. And it requires endurance. And many of the things that we do in life require endurance. And serving the Lord requires endurance. It's a bit like, if you remember back, people who start at university, perhaps the first couple of terms, they're full of enthusiasm and They get on very well. And then they get into that sort of mid part of the course when the novelty has worn off and it's hard slog. It's hard slog to keep doing it, and to reach the end is hard. And I know I did several courses um, um, by correspondence courses, where you're not there all the time. You just go. You're not living at university. You're working, and you're doing it in your spare time, and you're pursuing your studies, and it's hard work, and it requires endurance. It requires perseverance. And those people back in the Old Testament, they needed encouragement, and they had the encouragement of these two prophets, Haggai and Zechariah. And we need encouragement. And perhaps that's where I fit in, to encourage you to keep going, whatever you're struggling with, whatever you've lost enthusiasm for, whatever the Lord has given you to do and you're struggling to do it, keep going, persevere, apply yourself. Seek the Lord for a fresh enthusiasm for the work that you're doing. It reminded me of Hebrews 12, verse 1. Therefore, since we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us. Run with perseverance the race that is set before you. My brother, my sister, run with perseverance the race that is set before you. Your race will be different to my race. Your struggles will be different to my struggles. But the call on our life is the same. It is to live every day for Jesus, to keep our eyes focused, as the next verse in Hebrews 12 says, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the one we are following. Just like those people in the Old Testament, they had all that opposition. They were really struggling, and then they lost enthusiasm. And when the command came from the king that they were to carry on building, they struggled and they needed encouragement. However long the delay is, 16 years was a long time delay. We have to keep going. I just want to read you something which I read in a missionary magazine that we received this month, the magazine for Mission Aviation Fellowship. Do look them up if you don't know anything about Mission Aviation Fellowship. They fly light aircraft all around the world in the name of Jesus, and they help remote communities in all sorts of ways. And one of the ways that they help them is reported in this magazine, and it's about Papua in Indonesia. And let me just read you this. It's really wonderful. There are some pictures to go with it. There's pictures here of the Bible. There's a celebration that happened in Papua when the Bibles were given to the people, delivered in the aeroplane. They celebrated the arrival. Let me read this. After decades of dedication and perseverance, a dream has come true in Dekai, Papua. The Bible has finally arrived in the Ngalik language. In 1960, two pioneering missionaries, Ed and Shirley Maxey, arrived in the village of Silomo. Committed to learning and writing down the Ngalik language, they also built a house and an airstrip with the support of two local men, Enos and Amos. They devoted themselves passionately to translating the Bible into Ngalik. Remarkably, in 1989, their son Baz and his wife Myrna took on the continuation of the work Ed and Shirley had begun. 2 generations of one family with one mission. Mission Aviation Fellowship accompanied this unique enterprise every step of the way through countless flights so that the project did not falter. The joy of the MAF team was overflowing when it was able to participate in the festive Bible dedication ceremonies held 7 months ago, where these lovely photos were taken and the Bible in Ngalik was dedicated. From 1960 to 2025. What a mission, what a job, what perseverance required to bring this wonderful book into that language for that people group. Whatever God has called us to, dedication and perseverance is what we need. God grant us each one the determination, the stickability, the perseverance, the endurance to run the race that is set before us with perseverance, keeping our eyes on Jesus. He is the prize. He is the prize, but he's also the encouragement. And he gives us encouragement on our way. If you're flagging, if you're struggling, keep going. Keep going. The prize is worth all the effort. Have a great day. God bless you. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.